The flu season is upon us. Which type will we worry about this year? And what kind of shots will we be told to take? Remember the swine flu scare of 1976? That was the year the U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot. And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death, allegedly triggered by the flu shot. We picked up the story back in 1976 when the threat posed by the swine flu virus seemed very real indeed.
This virus was the cause of a pandemic in 1918 and 1919 that resulted in over 500,000 deaths in the United States, as well as 20 million deaths around the world.
See how easy it is to...
Thus, the U.S. government's publicity machine was cranked into action to urge all America to protect itself against the swine flu menace.
Influenza is serious business. During major flu epidemics, millions of people are sick and thousands die. Well, this year you can get protection. The vaccines are safe, easy to take, and they can protect you against flu. So roll up your sleeve. Protect yourself.
One of those who did roll up her sleeve was Judy Roberts. She was perfectly healthy, an active woman, when in November of 1976, she took her shot. 2 weeks later, she says, she began to feel a numbness starting up her legs.
I joked about it at that time. I said I'll be numb to the knees by Friday if this keeps up. By the following week, I was totally paralyzed.
So completely paralyzed, in fact, that they had to operate on her to enable her to breathe. And for 6 months, Judy Roberts was a quadriplegic. The diagnosis? A neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS for short. These neurological diseases are little understood. They affect people in different ways. As you can see in these home movies taken by a friend, Judy Roberts' paralysis confined her mostly to a wheelchair for over a year. But this disease can even kill. Indeed, there are 300 claims now pending from the families of GBS victims who died, allegedly as a result of the swine flu shot. In other GBS victims, the crippling effects diminish and all but disappear. But for Judy Roberts, progress back to good health has been painful and partial.
Now, I noticed that your smile, Judy, is a little bit constricted.
Yes, it is.
Is it different from what it used to be?
Very different. I have a greatly decreased mobility in my lips. And I can't drink through a straw on the right-hand side. I can't blow out birthday candles. I don't whistle anymore, for which my husband is grateful.
It may be a little difficult for you to answer this question, but have you recovered as much as you are going to recover?
Yes, this is it.
So you will now have a legacy of braces on your legs for the rest of your life?
Yes, the weakness in my hands will stay, and the leg braces will stay.
So Judy Roberts and her husband have filed a claim against the U.S. government. They're asking $12 million, though they don't expect to get nearly that much.
Judy, why did you take the flu shot?
I'd never taken any other flu shots, but I felt like this was going to be a major epidemic. And the only way to prevent a major epidemic of a really deadly variety of flu was for everybody to be immunized.
Where did this so-called deadly variety of flu, where did it first hit back in 1976? It began right here at Fort Dix in New Jersey in January of that year when a number of recruits began to complain of respiratory ailments, something like the common cold.
This is Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We've all lost so very much. So many loved ones gone.
Don't you fucking tease that horse!
You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know ASAP, Raphael. Again, this is Derrick Broze, the Conscious Resistance Network, the Conscious Resistance Live. We do this every week, and I focus on investigative journalism, on real solutions that you're not going to hear and find elsewhere. So thank you guys for being here. This is our latest episode. You might notice the last couple weeks I've been trying to feature some of these historical reports, like that one you just watched was from 1979 from 60 Minutes, for those who know 60 Minutes, with Mike Wallace. It was called Dangers of the Swine Flu Vaccine. And now that I'm thinking about it, I probably shouldn't have played that clip on YouTube, because even though it's a historical report from the mainstream, that still might get me a channel strike. But if you're curious to see that full report, which is about 15 minutes long, you can go to theconsciousresistance.com and just search 60 Minutes. You'll see that pop up. I encourage you to, because obviously with the world that we've seen the last few years, it's pretty insightful to realize that this isn't the first time that we've been through this. They kind of, these predator class, these psychopaths, they play off our ignorance very much so. And if you don't know history, then it repeats itself, unfortunately. And so a lot of people learned that the last 4 years. They didn't realize that this whole number had been pulled on us before, during the 60s and times before. But this was 1979, Mike Wallace looking back 15 years after the fact and saying, hey, remember that swine flu thing we were all told about? Well, people allegedly died and were injured permanently, and now they're suing the government. So that's a little history lesson for you guys. First off, before we go further, though, remind you guys, my website is theconsciousresistance.com, theconsciousresistance.com. Yes, I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Rockfin. I'm on Odyssey. I'm on BitChute. I'm on Hive. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Pinecast. I'm on SoulStream. And I think that's about it. But no matter what, the best place to find my work is always going to be theconsciousresistance.com, in case those platforms take me down or I disappear or whatever. I'm still going to be putting out work always at theconsciousresistance.com. Highly, highly recommend you check that out. Today's show, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin conference. I just got back from Bitcoin Nashville last night. I'm back in Mexico. Grateful to be back in beautiful Morelia, Mexico, where the weather is wonderful and it's not humid and hot. And I came back from spending a few days in Nashville with Hakeem Anwar of the Above Phone, a good friend of mine, as well as Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond, who I write for his website. And the three of us got to spend some time together. Ryan we did an interview with me. He did an interview with Hakeem. That interview can be found at thelastamericanvagabond.com. It just came out today. And we went really deep into the Summit of the Future, the planetary emergency, all that stuff that if you've been following me, you hear me talking about lately. And by the way, one of my videos seems to be getting a lot of attention on the Conscious Resistance YouTube, the older YouTube channel, about the planetary emergency. So thankfully, more and more people are talking about it. But we went to the Bitcoin conference there, and that is what we're going to focus on for about the first 30-40 minutes of this show. And for those of you who don't care about Bitcoin, don't X out. Don't, if you're like, oh, Derrick, Bitcoin's a psyop, or I don't even know how to log into my email, let alone use a Bitcoin wallet, just stay tuned, because I think you're going to want to hear this information, because whether you're in the crypto space, the Bitcoin space or not, it applies to you. It will, in fact, impact you. So that's what we're going to get into, the first story. In the second story, we're going to talk a little bit about this claim by Seymour Hersh that there has been some sort of coup against Obama. We heard this talk in the last week or two, mainly from right-wing, Republican media. But there is, in fact, some truth to it. We're going to get into that as well. But let's go ahead and jump back to the website. I want to let you know a couple of things, just to hit a couple housekeeping items before we go into the discussion of the day. I just dropped a brand new interview on my podcast, The Activation. In addition to doing the Conscious Resistance Live, the show you're listening to right now, I do occasionally release podcast under the name The Activation, which I launched in 2021 after I actually canceled the show you're watching now because I got tired of talking about the news and I wanted to just focus on the solutions. Well, now I'm doing both. So I put out a new conversation today, Activation number 30, Optimizing Your Nutrition to Heal Your Body with Patrick Holford. Patrick is going to be speaking at the UK, our first edition of the People's Reset, formerly known as the Greater Reset, which launched in 2021 in Mexico as a response to the World Economic Forum. We held 5 events under the name named the Greater Reset. We've now rebranded as the People's Reset. And this September 27th to the 29th, we're doing our first event in the UK. And Patrick is speaking there. And I honestly didn't know anything about this dude. He's from the UK. I met him through Dan Aston Gregory, who we're co-organizing the event with. But Patrick is involved with the organization, the Food for Brain Foundation and the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. He's the author of 46 books, including the Optimum Nutrition Bible and his new book, Upgrade Your Brain. This conversation was extremely fun. It was extremely important, and it's solutions focused. No matter what your diet is, you need to hear this conversation. If you have family members or friends who are dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia, you need to hear this conversation, because like so many of the things that we're told in our world, it's not just genetic, it's not just hereditary, it's the diet. It is the poisons being put into your body, sprayed on us, the depletion of soil. It's much bigger, but also that means that there are some things you can do. You don't just have to throw your hands up and say, oh, well, everybody in my family's had Alzheimer's, so I'm going to get it one day. I'm going to just end up losing my mind. That's not the case. In fact, his research is showing much different than that. So I encourage you to check out that conversation. Again, find it at theconsciousresistance.com. Optimizing Your Nutrition to Heal Your Body with Patrick Holford. And as I mentioned, he will be speaking at the People's Reset UK. And in fact, while we're mentioning the People's Reset UK, let me just play this quick trailer. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you can get a little taste, and we'll be back and we'll start our first story of the night talking about the Bitcoin bros, Donald Trump, and yes, your favorite platform, Rumble. And we'll be back in just a moment.
This is a solutions event. This is what's happening.
After 5 successful events in North America, the Freedom Cell Network is partnering with Free Humanity to bring the People's Reset to Bath, UK. In 2020, as the World Economic Forum announced the Great Reset Initiative, millions of people around the world began questioning the narratives being fed to them.
You must stay at home.
Millions of free-thinking people responded with protests, marches and rallies focused on waking up the rest of the world to the dark agenda of control and technocracy hidden beneath the so-called health initiatives.
We need to know every single piece of information.
We've lived that freedom message today, and we've been a walking symbol of what it means to be free.
While the world was reacting to the rapid expansion of tyranny, the Freedom Cell Network sought to promote solutions by launching the Greater Reset Activation in January 2021, a 5-day gathering designed to inspire, motivate, and activate freedom lovers into action. The Greater Reset highlighted the importance of localization, decentralization, individual and collective liberty, bodily autonomy, and freedom of choice.
The technocrats at the United Nations and the World Economic Forum are now hosting the Summit of the Future in New York City in September 2024.
At that meeting, governments of the world are expected to sign the so-called Pact for the Future. We reject their vision and the assumption that they speak for humanity. Join us in September for the People's Reset UK, our summit for our future.
Over 3 days, we will gather in community, celebrating our victories and successes, whilst continuing to highlight solutions under 5 holistic themes.
Liberate your mind, body, and spirit.
Permaculture and food independence.
Building parallel networks.
Empowering technology.
And building free and conscious communities. 24 top-notch speakers, including Neil Oliver, Charles Dowding, Dan Aston Gregory, Nigel Hallett, John and Rebecca Bush, and many more.
We'll also be hosting the People's Reset concert featuring international artist DubFX, as well as Presence, 33, and more talented performers to come. Join us in Bath in September 2024 as we collaborate and build the parallel systems of the future.
Join us for the next evolution of the Greater Reset.
Join us for the People's Reset UK. Visit thegreaterreset.org to learn more and to get your ticket today.
All right, so that is the People's Reset. Let me go ahead and show you guys the website real quick, the People's Reset UK, coming September 27th to the 29th. And I saw a comment a moment ago and somebody said, have you seen anything about the 2024 UN meeting in New York? Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you're on my channel, go check my videos, go to my website, search the Summit of the Future. I'm one of the few people who's been warning about this and talking about it, but not just talking about it, involved in organizing an alternative. So for 3 days in Bath, UK, we're going to be focused on solutions, as you just heard in that video. But even if you're not going to make it to the UK, like all of the Greater Reset, now People Reset events, the entire event is streamed for free, and all the talks are made available for free. Because you know what, guys? I'm one of the people out here who think maybe we shouldn't just focus on the problems all the time. Maybe we should actually try to provide our audience and people who tune in with some practical solutions and tools that they could actually use in their lives, rather than just doom scrolling all day and watching the bad news. Because as I've said before, plenty of people monetize your fear. They monetize your black pilling. They tell you bad news after clickbait video, and don't ever bother trying to give any solutions to you. And maybe that's because they have none. And some of us, that's not our forte. I'm not saying I have the perfect solution for everybody per se, but why not actually try to provide our community? And I see you guys as my community. We connect on the internet, but some of you I've met in person. And I do think that this is a community that we're part of. And I want my community to be solutions focused, to be aware that there are things we can actually do for ourselves. So that's what my work's about. That's what the People's Reset's about. You'll be able to watch for free at thegreaterreset.org, September 27th to the 29th, 3 days, talks in permaculture, technology, health, building parallel networks, building communities. And if you can come in person, it's going to be amazing. If not, check it out online, and we'll see you there. So let's go ahead and continue. One more time, thegreaterreset.org is the website. All right. So I went to Nashville for the Bitcoin conference, and I've shared this before, but for those who don't know, I've been involved in the crypto space, the Bitcoin space, for 13 years. I got my first Bitcoin transaction, I think, in 2012. And I went to the Texas Bitcoin Conference in 2013 or 2014 as a journalist and started to report on it. And I have used Bitcoin as well as Monero. And I've played with other coins like Dash and others who've come and gone, Smart Cash and other projects that I thought were useful for the purpose of trying to avoid the banks, trying to actually live free of government. That is why I am involved in the Bitcoin space, or I have been. But at the same time, if you follow my reporting the last 4 years, and even earlier, I've talked about the concerns, the dangers of the crypto community, the way that people are turning a blind eye to the fact that the space has been co-opted. Let's just say that. And again, I encourage you to listen, even if you don't care about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about Donald Trump speaking at the Bitcoin conference and why that matters, and who Donald Trump is really connected to, who these folks at the Bitcoin conference, which is run by Bitcoin Magazine, are connected to, and how that ties into Rumble and the shady people behind Rumble. You need to listen to this whole news story here, but I'm just giving you some background. I've been reporting on this problem. In fact, here's an interview I did in 2018 with James Corbett of the CorbettReport.com, talking about the Bitcoin PSYOP. And not to say, like many of you think, like, oh, Bitcoin's a PSYOP, it's run by the government because there's the algorithm came from the NSA and things like that. Those are all important conversations, but no, that's not what I mean. Because as I said, if you've been afraid of Bitcoin, you've kind of missed out. If you've been afraid of crypto, I haven't used a bank since 2008. And largely that's in part because of using crypto. I don't have a relationship with certain government agencies, and largely that's in part to crypto. James and I did this conversation back in 2018 at the Bitcoin PSYOP, and just talking about how people are falling into different traps. I encourage you to go back and check out that if you want to get caught up. But my point is, I've been reporting on the positives and the negatives. Some people out there are like, just all technology is bad, anything blockchain, anything crypto, it's all bad. And the most of the time when you scratch those people and you dig a little further, they don't know anything about Bitcoin. They don't know anything about crypto. They don't know anything about blockchain. They never actually used it. They just read things online that scare them. Sure enough, there are some scary things that are in the works. But my point is, I went to this Bitcoin Nashville conference to try to interview Russell Brand, to try to interview the CEO of Rumble, to try to interview a few other people, and to kind of listen to some of the talks. Thankfully, there were some talks that were focused on privacy, but by and large, these talks were all about welcoming government regulation into the crypto space. And this is a major difference. When I went to the Texas Bitcoin Conference in 2013, 2014, yeah, there was some people at that time talking about we need to get government regulation so Bitcoin can be accepted. And once that happens, we'll be mature, we'll be mainstream. And people so focused on mainstreaming the Bitcoin project, as opposed to sticking true to the original vision, which for those who don't know, was to be digital cash in terms of anonymity, low cost. And, I can take a USB with 100,000 USD of Bitcoin across the border and nobody's going to know the difference. But if you try to take gold or silver or cash across the border, they want you to report, $10,000 or more. So there are obvious benefits to this. But absolutely, what has happened is the people that were involved in the Bitcoin space who wanted government regulation and who wanted to go in that direction, they've won. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. These people have won. They have directed it into that direction. And as I'm going to show today at the Nashville Bitcoin Conference, again, funded by Bitcoin Magazine, there are some problematic connections. And I'm not the first person to talk about this, but there are some things that I'm going to be speaking about today that you need to know. And this will be in a brand new article that is going to be coming out tomorrow or the next day at the Last American Bag Bond. So first thing first, before we get too serious, I tweeted this after the Bitcoin conference. So Donald Trump's speech today at the Bitcoin Nashville event, he rambled as he usually does. He made some pandering statements about Bitcoin, and he cracked some dumb jokes. Like he said something like, you guys have fun playing with your Bitcoin and whatever else you play with. It was so clear Trump doesn't understand the technology and he's pandering. He's just being a politician. But what stood out to me is that his ear looked perfectly fine. Like his ear didn't look damaged in any way at all. And I just wanted to make that note. Kind of a joke, but at the same time, I stand by it. And I've seen pictures of him that day taken by the Associated Press on the way to Nashville, and his ear looked fine. I think that was all, I don't know. We'll save that for another day. Now, here's a couple of my friends who have also been in the Bitcoin crypto space for a long time, and I think their thoughts are worth sharing before we get into the connections and show you how the Bitcoin bros and the right-wing big tech bros are getting behind Trump. And sure, they're funding him and they're saying they're going to fight the woke mind virus and fight the deep state, but at the same time, they have some of the same worrisome connections that we're concerned about when it comes to Google and YouTube. So Sterling Lujan, a good friend of mine, said at the Bitcoin 2024 event, Trump did a lot of pandering, grandstanding, and appeals to emotion. He promised the Bitcoin community he would fire Gensler from the SEC and free Ross Ulbricht on day one. Big words, lots of promises. The question is, how hollow are they? How much truth does he have in his bones? You will have to excuse my deeply entrenched skepticism. He previously said he would drain the swamp, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. In reality, he reaffirmed the swamp when he was in office. He also attempted to take the guns first, crushing the Second Amendment. I have previously stated that I would consider voting for Trump only as a hostage negotiation for freeing political prisoner Ross Ulbricht. However, now that he has made two promises, my skepticism has doubled. If I decide to vote for Trump, it will only be because I love the Ulbricht family and I value my friendship with Lynn. And Lynn is Ross's mom, and I feel the same way, although I won't be voting either way. In the hopes of liberating Ross, it 100% will not be because I harbor any loyalty to the political system or expect any systematic shift towards liberty. As a philosophical refresher, nothing vital changes when new presidents step into office. The drug war will still rage. The prison-industrial complex will steam forward. Wars and American imperialism will become more entrenched. The surveillance state will continue to violate the privacy rights of millions of people. The Fed money printer will continue to churn out millions of pieces of valueless, inflated toilet paper. In other words, power will not recede simply because a new boss gets his wing. Attempting to create actual change by installing a new president would be akin to ousting a mob boss and installing a new one from the inside. This action does not change La Cosa Nostra's fundamental nature. It is still an organization shaped by violence, machismo, and corruption. Still, I am open to winning the consolation prize, Ross's freedom. I remain conflicted. So I kind of feel the same way, being friends with Ross's family and having been reporting on Ross's case in the courtroom since 2013. I don't agree with Trump at all. I don't, no, I'm not going to vote for Trump. But yeah, I see people, who are trying to hang on to that. But ultimately, the crux of what Sterling said here is it's just more promises. And if the Bitcoin community is stupid enough to believe Trump, just the same way we heard he was going to, the WikiLeaks, he's going to do all these great things. If you're dumb enough to fall for Trump at this point, and not see that he's just pandering for votes, I don't know. But I wish I could say, well, you deserve what you get. But unfortunately, in this democracy mob rule, all the U.S. citizens got to deal with it. Even me, I don't even live in the U.S. For the majority of the year, but my family and friends do, and they will be impacted by idiots' decisions to continue voting in this rigged system. No, that doesn't mean I support Biden. They're all idiots. They're all criminals. But I'm just saying, if you think you're going to get real change, then you're not paying attention. Here's another one from Sal the Agris says, 12 years ago, Bitcoiners wouldn't have allowed a politician at their event. And I think that's true. I said straight up, the space has been co-opted by newbies who only want NGU, which is number go up. And that basically means people who all they care about is anything. If Trump talks about Bitcoin and the number goes up, cool, I'm making money on my investment, because they don't understand that the whole point was to get rid of the central banks and to get away from the government. So the newbies only care about number going up and getting Lambos, Lamborghinis, which means people getting rich, and government regulations. They don't care about defeating the state or central bank. I agree. 12 years ago, Bitcoiners would not have had a freaking presidential candidate, especially this one, let alone two with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. come speak. And, on one hand, I get it, right? For the Bitcoiners and the crypto community out there who say, but Derrick, this just shows how powerful we've become. Now the powers that wish they were, they have to come to our event and have to plead for our votes, and they have to pander. Well, 10 years ago, people was like, oh yeah, that Bitcoin thing is just stupid internet money. Or they said it's only for drug dealers, things like that. Now they're literally bringing presidential candidates to come beg for votes. I guess you could call that progress. And it would be progress if the original vision was still the mainstay, if the people gathering at Bitcoin Nashville were there saying, yes, Bitcoin's growing, and that means we don't need banks anymore, and that means the Federal Reserve is no longer a power over our lives. That means we can avoid government taxation. That means we can have free money, actual free money, and get around the system and have privacy and this and that. Not that Bitcoin provides those things because it's pseudo-anonymous, but let's say just in general with Monero and things like that. If that was the case, that would be something to celebrate. But instead, people are celebrating, cool, presidential candidates are coming to talk to us, even though Bitcoin has totally lost its vision. And now we're going to show you, let's go further in depth, looking at how Donald Trump and the right-wing tech bros, he's been positioning himself. He made some promises at the Bitcoin Nashville event this weekend. He's made similar promises. He said something similar about going to go easy on Bitcoin regulation at the Libertarian National Convention that I went to in May. But this has been slowly building. So we're going to go through quite a few links here. And I'm going to show you how the same people who are connected to the Bilderberg group, who are connected to the Clintons, and who are connected to the PayPal Mafia, which was their own nickname, basically big tech bros, who are also connected to the Bilderberg group through Peter Thiel, are the same people who are funding this Bitcoin conference and the shift towards Bitcoin to being digital gold rather than a real currency, as well as funding and being involved in Rumble, which is why I don't use Rumble. I know so many people are so excited about it. And I did try to interview the CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovsky, this weekend. I'll be honest, he looked at me like I was nobody and said, sure, I'll see if I have time. And then I didn't see him again and he didn't bother. But he didn't seem interested in talking to me. And I've seen his Twitter account where he's kind of poo-pooing anybody who brings up criticisms of JD Vance, although he didn't directly address Peter Thiel. This is back in June. Trump pitches himself as crypto president at San Francisco Tech fundraiser. Let's look at this because these are important little bits of pieces as we build to where we are now. Trump raised $12 million at the time, championing himself as a champion for cryptocurrency and talking crap about the Democrats for going after the crypto sector. Trump raised $12 million at a fundraiser hosted by tech venture capitalist David Sachs, so remember that name, and Chamath Palihapitiya. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but you've probably seen this guy around. In fact, I found out that David Sachs and Chamath and two other guys, they host a podcast together. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they call themselves the Besties, and they do this podcast that's reaching millions of people focused on finance and crypto, et cetera. So David Sachs, tech venture capitalist, hosts a fundraiser for Trump in San Francisco, which is, of course, typically left-leaning tech home that has been changing. And they raised $12 million for Trump. And one of the people there says he said he would be the crypto president. And it goes on to say how the crypto industry is increasingly trying to influence U.S. politicians as it faces heightened scrutiny from regulators. Trump touted crypto as important and stressed that he was very supportive of the sector. So it goes on. Let's just get a little deeper. But the point so far is, as you see, Trump went to San Francisco, raised $12 million off an event organized by David Sachs, as well as some other folks in the big tech area. And these are big investors. So let's go to the next one. This is from the New York Times, just early June as well. So this one happened even before this fundraiser in San Francisco. It's not 2016 anymore. Trump finds friends in Silicon Valley. Donald Trump attended a fundraiser in San Francisco, as we just said, and his host, the tech entrepreneur David Sacks, hoped to portray Silicon Valley as a more MAGA welcoming place. That's David Sacks right there, entrepreneur, investor, who we'll get more into his background here. But they kind of pick up where we left off, that he had this fundraiser. But guess who was also there at another gala that was organized by David Sacks? J.D. Vance, who was at the time a senator, who is now the vice presidential nominee along with Donald Trump in the Republican Party. So it says that on a March night in the nation's capital, then Senator J.D. Vance left a conservative gala to join a group of people having dinner with Donald Trump Jr. Who were these folks? These were big tech friends, including David Sacks, who we just mentioned, along with Donald Trump Jr. and J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance and David Sacks are friends and allies. So think about that. Donald Trump chose this guy to be his VP, who's got connections, as you probably know by now, to Peter Thiel, formerly of PayPal, also connected to Palantir. Palantir is, of course, the all-seeing eye from the Lord of the Rings, with contracts from the CIA, working to build a freaking surveillance state. And Peter Thiel also sits on the steering committee of the Bilderberg group. And he is also friends with David Sacks. So we're starting to see there's this grouping taking place. J.D. Vance wasn't just picked for no reason. It's because of his big tech, right-wing big tech connections. And many of those folks are friendly to crypto, and they want Trump to be friendly to crypto so they can make more money. But also they're destroying the original vision of Bitcoin in the process. And it was there at this impromptu post-dinner hang, hours after Mr. Trump became the presumptive Republican nominee, that Mr. Sacks signaled that he was, quote, all in for Trump 2024. And it says that he flew to San Francisco to attend a fundraiser. This one, they say, raised $20 million. And so this is maybe another one. This private event, the first campaign fundraiser since Mr. Trump's criminal conviction, was expected to raise north of $12 million. So they're raising dozens and dozens of millions of dollars for him. And it just goes on to say how back 4 years ago, the Bay Area was still a home for liberalism and didn't have much support for Trump, but that has changed because of the Biden administration. Well, we might as well call it the Obama administration. The Biden administration going after crypto folks. Oh, so their podcast is called All In, with David Sacks and Chamath and these other guys. And again, as they point out here, Mr. Sacks, a longtime associate of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, has transformed from a prominent Silicon Valley executive into an unlikely media celebrity for would-be entrepreneurs, especially those who are leaning right, who listen to his podcast. He has substantially increased his political involvement, hiring aides to steer his giving, setting up his own super PACs, and as of late, building relationships at Mr. Trump's Florida home base, Mar-a-Lago, to which he lacked just a few months ago. So they're building up this connection, this right-wing connection. Again, many of us are concerned about the influence of the Googles and the Susan Wojcicki, the YouTube, whatever her last name is, and her sister, and Sergey Brin, and these folks that tend to lean left. But guess what? There's a right-wing big tech as well. And no, that doesn't mean, oh, cool, Derrick, now we got the billionaires on our side and they're going to fight for Trump and they're going to keep us all, safe, and they'll never censor. For now, things seem good in terms of the things they're supporting, but we should absolutely be concerned about these connections. Let's go on. So that's two articles showing Trump pitching himself as the crypto president. And of course, he just spoke at Bitcoin Nashville. And he's getting the support from these formerly liberal big tech folks, which really it just shows you they don't care. They're just going to fund whoever they think is going to win and whoever's going to be friendly to their causes, like all businessmen. Here's one from USA Today, Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance, how PayPal founder boosted J.D. Vance's political career. And I've already talked about this. Whitney Webb's written an article about it. He helped him when he was running for the Senate in Ohio with $15 million. So he didn't just give him a small check. He gave him $15 million and was largely responsible for helping him become elected. And of course, that played a role in him rising to now being a vice presidential candidate. And it says here, when J.D. Vance first met Peter Thiel in 2011, Vance was a student at Yale Law School, and Thiel, a venture capitalist, gave a speech at the university criticizing modern society. Vance later wrote that he was trying to find his place in a highly competitive atmosphere, and Thiel's speech awoke something in him that made him realize he didn't want to practice law. So then he goes on to work directly with Peter Thiel You're going to want to remember this later when we talk about Rumble. J.D. Vance, vice presidential candidate, is involved in something called Narya Capital, and that he works with Peter Thiel. Of course, Peter Thiel's got his own money and his own funding. So there's a strong connection here. This isn't just like random things that are going on. And if you don't know anything about Peter Thiel, it goes back to the 90s. He was involved in early investor in PayPal and then Facebook. He was also a financier, and this is interesting. I've thought about writing an article, but at this point, it's not really that important. But Peter Thiel's fingerprints were all over the Republican National Convention, not only because, of course, Trump picked J.D. Vance, but Hulk Hogan was speaking there. And you guys might not remember this, but Hulk Hogan had a sex tape leak back in the day by Gawker. Gawker was like a TMZ type website, and Peter Thiel hated Gawker because they were the first ones to reveal that he was a closeted homosexual. And he, of course, was angry about that. He should have his privacy. And I'm not saying that was right to do, but the point was he was pissed off at them. So then once Hulk Hogan has this sex tape release and Gawker puts it out into the public, Hulk Hogan's pissed and he wants to sue them. And he does. And he helped bankrupt that website. But guess who funded the lawsuit? Peter Thiel. So in a sense, at the Republican National Convention, I'm sure there's more connections, but that's just what I first saw. Like J.D. Vance, funded by Peter Thiel, who's a steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group, connected to PayPal, Facebook, and lots of other things. He gets picked as VP. Hulk Hogan comes to give a speech. Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against Gawker was funded by Peter Thiel. This is not a mistake. This dude is behind the scenes. He's lurking around. And even though he calls himself a self-described libertarian, I've never believed that bullshit. This guy, I've never seen him do anything that's remotely libertarian, other than maybe he wants the government to leave him alone so he can make a lot of money. They say that at the past he supported Ron Paul, with some donations, things like that. But obviously he's gone. He could have given Ron Paul millions of dollars if he wanted. I don't think he did that. He might have publicly supported him. But in this case, he's indirectly and directly supporting Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And then here we get to Peter Thiel investing in Rumble. We're going to put that one aside for now, and we'll get back to that. Let's continue on here. This one was from, how long ago was this? This was July 2024, so just a few weeks ago. How a network of tech billionaires helped J.D. Vance leap into power. We kind of already discussed this, but this is just getting into further evidence. David Sachs, again, mentioning David Sachs, the guy who helped raise $12 million plus for Trump, who's all in for Trump now, and who is friends with Peter Thiel as well as J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, as they say here, has worked for one of Mr. Thiel's investment firms in San Francisco since 2016, and I believe that's Narya Capital. Let me just do a Control F and see if they got that in here. Oops. I hope you guys are still with me and following all this. It's Narya. In 2020, Mr. Vance founded his own venture firm, Narya Capital, in Cincinnati. He has turned to his tech connections, including former Google chief executive Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt, there he is. You guys might not know this. I've reported on this, but Eric Schmidt is the head of an AI commission that was started under the Biden administration. Also, Eric Schmidt is a steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group as well. So you got Eric Schmidt and Peter Thiel, both steering committee members of the Bilderberg Group, both working with J.D. Vance, who is now Trump's VP candidate, and both of them, through Peter Thiel and Narya, also invested in Rumble, as we'll get into shortly. So it's just talking about J.D. Vance, his connection to Eric Schmidt, Mark Andreessen, who's the billionaire investor, Peter Thiel. And it goes on. Peter Thiel is also on Narya's leadership advisory committee. So not only did Peter Thiel directly give to J.D. Vance's Senate run, but they together helped invest in Rumble, and then Rumble, of course, went public. We'll talk more about that. But you also have other connections. Rebecca Mercer, you guys know about the Mercer family, longtime Republicans, billionaire donors. Rebecca Mercer's kind of taken over for her father now and her family. She was involved in Parler and things like that, if you guys remember Parler. Mr. Vance became interested in backing tech platforms. He advised Rebecca Mercer. So this dude is all up in the right-wing shadow money, billionaires, big tech bros thing. And as I'm going to bring it back to the Bitcoin conference in a moment, you'll see how some of these connections matter, right? Because we got Trump going to the Bitcoin conference saying he's going to be all in, he's going to help, he's going to stop fighting crypto. And he said something like, I want all the Bitcoin to be made in America, which is, again, a fundamental misunderstanding of how Bitcoin works and how crypto works. But nevertheless, they're all connected through that. Trump's getting all this money from David Sachs, who David Sachs is connected to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is connected to JD Vance, Trump's VP pick. Is it making sense yet? Are you guys getting the picture yet? Around that time, and this is another interesting aspect, I think we need to dig further into this, Mr. Vance co-founded a network of major donors with some tech leaders called the Rockbridge Network. And I think that's what this next one I have here. So the Rockbridge Network, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But the picture I'm getting across is these folks, this is not just some, Trump didn't just pick this dude out of nowhere, JD Vance, and these folks that are pushing Bitcoin and promoting as if it's, it's something great. Like I said earlier, they've taken Bitcoin away from the original vision of being something that could compete with the government, can compete with the banks. Instead, they're trying to get people to look at it as just an investment, something to hold, something to, use like digital gold, where you just hold on to it and it gains in value. That wasn't the original purpose. It was supposed to defeat the central banks, defeat the government. And at the same time, as Whitney Webb and Mark Godwin are showing, their goal is really the Bitcoin dollar. They don't want it to be an actual currency that you can use, which was the whole purpose. And if you're in Bitcoin and you don't get that, you must have got in late. The other thing is, as Mark Godwin talks about, they want this to be, in my view, I think it's going to be the Bitcoin dollar, just like there's the petrodollar. So sure, Bitcoin will be allowed. They're going to continue to go after other more private currencies like Monero and putting people in prison for trying to actually have privacy, locking up people like the Samurai wallet. But they'll let Bitcoin continue to flourish because Bitcoin's going to just sit right next to the dollar. Instead of actually circumventing the machine and being something that gets us away from government, it's just going to be another thing that's along with that. And even if Trump does as he claimed, where he's like, there's never going to be a CBDC under my watch, maybe he will. Of course, it's probably a lie. He's running for office. But if that is the case and people will celebrate it, what I suspect then is Bitcoin will then effectively be used like a CBDC in some capacity or another. Or we just keep the same old system. You still got the dollar system. Yeah, sure. You can invest in Bitcoin. They're going to kill off and get rid of all the other more private currencies, cryptos like Monero. And either a CBDC comes along as planned, or they avoid it for a while, but still effectively get the track and trace system by using Bitcoin and the dollar. That is what I think is what we're working towards here. Now let's continue on with JD Vance. Mr. Vance, according to Crystal McKellar, who was a venture capitalist who worked with him at Mithral Capital, said he was very much a friend of the Thiel network going back years. It seems like Peter saw something really special in him and wanted to encourage it. It also says Mr. Musk encouraged Mr. Trump to choose Mr. Vance in private communications recently. So think about that. You got the big tech Elon, who lots of you people are falling for your false messiah as your false hero, along with falling for Trump. And Musk is saying, hey, let's go with JD Vance, since he's funded by Peter Thiel and all these other right-wing big techs, bros, and connected to David Sachs. And that's who Trump went with. I don't think Trump made this decision on his own, as he doesn't typically make his own decisions. I know a lot of you think he is, but you need to wake up and realize he's a puppet. Mr. Vance has relied on Mr. Sachs, again, David Sachs, who is raising money for Trump, who he called one of my closest confidants. So the reports are showing he's one of the closest confidants to David Sachs. He's deeply embedded in or very much a friend of the Thiel network going back years. And Mr. Elon Musk is promoting him as well. These to me are not good signs. I know some of you will say, oh, come on, Derrick, you're just being left-wing and you're just hating them because they're rich or some garbage like that. No, these are connections that matter. I had a friend of mine ask me, okay, so does that mean Rumble equals bad? Does that mean Bitcoin equals bad? I mean, you can make it as simple as you want. For me personally, I think these connections matter. And if you don't know why these connections matter, I'm not sure how you got on this channel, but please stay because you need to keep watching and listening. But this is not just some random selection of a random guy who wrote a cool book, Hillbilly Elegy, and made it into a movie. And so Trump figured this guy's young and hip and cool. He'll be the one to carry MAGA into the future. Sure, he's going to be that, but at the same time, he's funded by the same big tech bros. So you got this false dichotomy: Google, Eric Schmidt, left-leaning, Clinton supporter, etc. Peter Thiel, David Sachs, etc., Trump supporter. And guess what? Thiel and Eric Schmidt both sit on the steering committee at the Bilderberg Group. And that's not just, they went there one time in 1993. They're steering committee members. That means they help steer the group and they help decide the agenda as it moves forward. This actually does matter, my friends. If you don't get that, please continue paying attention. Let's go on. We got a couple more links before we take our first break here. All right, dissatisfied with their party, wealthy Republican donors formed secret coalitions. This kind of picks up more with what we were just talking about with this Rockbridge network. Eager to offset a Democratic advantage among so-called dark money groups, wealthy pro-Trump conservatives like Peter Thiel are involved in efforts to wield greater influence outside the traditional party machinery. This was reported 2 years ago, back in 2022. Again, the coalition, called the Rockbridge Network, includes some of Mr. Trump's biggest donors, such as Peter Thiel and Rebecca Mercer, who I just mentioned, and has laid out an ambitious goal: reshape the American right by spending more than $30 million on conservative media, legal policy, and voter registration projects. Conservative media, that's what catches my eye. Think about how many people out there might be being funded by this network to tell you that Trump is the answer. And even if they really believe it, they're still being paid or influenced. This Peter Thiel network, we don't have real numbers. And since it's this dark money, the way they hide the money, we're not really able to find out where it's going or what it's for, but we know they're spending millions of dollars. The emergence of Rockbridge comes amid escalating jockeying among conservative mega donors to shape the 2022 midterms and the future of the Republican Party from outside the formal party machinery. And it says there was another previously unreported coalitions of donors, the Chestnut Street Council. I think these are things we need to dig further into. The Rockbridge Network, the Chestnut Street Council, organized by Trump-allied lobbyist Matt Schlapp, held a meeting to hear a pitch for new models for funding the conservative movement. So the billionaires are getting in there and they're saying, like, look, the things we're doing in the past aren't working. The left, the Democrats, are better at this. We need to start creating organizations. We need to start creating groups. And the New York Times says they found that 15 of the most politically active nonprofit organizations that generally align with the Democratic Party spent more than $1.5 billion in 2020. And that compares to only $900 million spent by a comparable sample of 15 groups aligned with the Republicans. So the Republicans have been outspent by these dark money, big billionaire organizations, and the Rockbridge network is trying to change that. So there was a brochure that called Rockbridge, quote, a kind of political venture capital arm that will leverage our investors' capital with the right political expertise to replace the current Republican ecosystem of think tanks, media organizations, and activist groups that have contributed to the party's decline with better action-oriented, more effective people and institutions that are focused on winning. Among the initiatives, and this is again, they say they are media-related functions, including public relations, messaging, polling, influencer programs, and investigative journalism, with a combined budget of $8 million. Now think about that. That is, again, what catches my eye. Influencer programs and investigative journalism, media ventures. Who do you think is potentially receiving this millions of dollars from these right-wing Republican, right-wing tech bros in order to tell you that Trump is the answer, in order to try to push you and navigate you further into the Republican Party? This is just the same old garbage, left-right paradigm stuff. And so many people are falling for it because with the age of the internet and fifth-generation warfare, meaning that social media is a battlefield, there really is a war on for your mind, meant to convince you that you still need to vote, that this party or this side of the ass cheek or this side of the ass cheek is better and is going to lead to a better world because this is the most important election ever. Since the last one and the one before that and the one before that. Oh yeah. You know, they're going to keep telling you that and some of you are going to keep falling for it. But this is actually being funded. This is not happening by mistake. These organizations have plans and they are coordinating to try to make Trump appear as a hero to many of the people who care about freedom. And unfortunately, there are people that we know falling for it. And this is just more of what you guys know I call the great inversion, just trying to keep people trapped in that left-right paradigm. So who potentially is receiving this $8 million to be an influencer or to do so-called investigative journalism promoting Trump? I think that's an important question. Unfortunately, we don't have those answers right now. Now, I think we've kind of hammered home, and I pointed out some of the names. Peter Thiel, who is connected to the Bilderberg Group, PayPal, formerly of PayPal, invested in Facebook, helped invest in Trump's VP candidate, J.D. Vance, and help him get it to his Senate position, and now he's a VP. J.D. Vance is also friends with David Sachs. David Sachs, of course, raised millions of dollars for Trump going back to May and June. Trump is now speaking at the Bitcoin Nashville conference, claiming that he's going to be the Bitcoin president. And we've got the Republicans trying to play the same game as the Democrats, forming these secret coalitions of networks, money networks, and influencers. Now, let's talk about Bitcoin and let's talk about Rumble. I tweeted this the other day. There's this gentleman speaking on stage. His name's Howard Lutnick. He spoke and he pledged $13.2 billion from his investment firm, Cantor Fitzgerald. And he said they, quote, own a shitload of Bitcoin, and all the Bitcoiners cheer and celebrate it. But what I tweeted here was the Bitcoin community celebrates this, but do they know this dude? Howard Lutnick helped Rumble go public with $400 million. He also helped raise millions for the Clintons, and he used to be Epstein's next door neighbor in New York City. I mean, I know that doesn't automatically mean anything, but come on, think about those connections. You're telling me this guy, the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, a billion-dollar company all around the world investing in firms, Howard Lutnick, he lived next door to Jeffrey Epstein, not just like a couple houses down, literally the next house next door to Jeffrey Epstein. And at the same time, back in 2015, 2016, while living next to Jeffrey Epstein, he's raising millions of dollars for the Clintons. And think about that. The Clintons, as we know, particularly Bill Clinton, had relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. How weird is it to think that Bill may have attended this fundraiser with Hillary at Howard Lutnick's house in New York City and been right next door to Jeffrey Epstein's house. And this is at the time when he wasn't arrested yet. This is back in 2015, 2016, when we knew who he was, but they weren't doing anything about it yet. You wonder if Bill Clinton or Hillary went next door to say hi to old Jeff. And I don't know, that just seems hard for me to imagine that this guy, this billionaire living next to each other, sure, it's Upper West Side, it's New York City, Upper East Side, lots of these people live in the same areas. I'm not saying they had to be buddies just because they live next door, but it's another weird ass connection that does not sit right with me. And then, so Howard Lutnick of Cantor Fitzgerald, CEO, pledges they're going to put $13 billion into Bitcoin, or excuse me, that they're going to put, $13 billion into Bitcoin, that they already own a shitload. So everybody's celebrating that. But let's go a little deeper into it. Now, as I mentioned at the Bitcoin conference, I was trying to interview Russell Brand, and I was trying to interview the CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, because Rumble was a big sponsor for this event. They had official Rumble displays everywhere. During the breaks between speakers, they had like a commercial with Russell Brand playing. Rumble had their own kind of area with, encouraging people to sign up and follow. And at one point, Russell Brand came there and did some photos and some signing autographs, and Chris Pavlovski was there. And I went there. I didn't go to get a photo or anything like that, but I talked to Russell Brand. I connected with him. I don't necessarily trust him per se, but I do believe I'm probably going to be on his show coming up soon to talk about my work. And I tried to interview the CEO of Rumble to ask him these questions, and I plan to ask Russell Brand, if I get a chance to, what he thinks about this stuff. But as I mentioned earlier, Chris Pavlovski kind of just brushed me off, and that's fine. He doesn't need to talk to me. He's busy. I wish I would have been able to ask him this self, because I'm not just trying to be on the internet speculating. I would like for him to go on the record and tell us, does Peter Thiel's money, which was an early investment in Rumble, and again, Peter Thiel connected to Bilderberg Group and all these shady folks, and he also is connected to Palantir, the surveillance firm, is any of the user data on Rumble being sent to Palantir, or is it being collected in any kind of way? I'm sure this is in the privacy policy, but I want to ask him directly. I want to ask him if we should care about these connections. Let's go a little deeper. There's more than what I just covered already. There's some more in terms of Rumble and the Bitcoin conference. So Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, goes to Nashville, speaks there, makes a big announcement. But let's look at this. Rumble, they partnered with Cantor Fitzgerald back in 2022. This is when they went public under what's known as an SPAC. Rumble and Cantor Fitzgerald today announced the completion of their previously announced business combination. The merger was approved at a special meeting of stockholders on September 2022. The combined company will operate as Rumble Inc. going forward, and it goes on. So now Rumble is a publicly traded company. The transaction provides Rumble with approximately $400 million in gross proceeds, including $85 million of proceeds. So $400 million from Cantor Fitzgerald. So the same guy speaking at the Bitcoin conference, who happened to be neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein, who's raised millions of dollars for the Clintons in 2015, 2016, and he's now saying his company's all in on Bitcoin, also helped Rumble go public. That to me is a connection that matters. Now, that doesn't mean that Chris Pavlovsky is a CIA agent or something like that, but these numbers do matter, my friends. You can't just ignore this and say, oh, well, you know, we got to get investments from somewhere, because as we know how the world works, money talks. And when you take money from somebody, they often want something back. Maybe not. This is why I wanted to put him on the record and say, does Cantor Fitzgerald and Howard Lutnick or Peter Thiel or any of these folks have any say of how you use the money for Rumble or the type of content you allow? Have they ever talked about wanting to censor people? Will they censor people in the future? These questions need to be asked. And here's some more, guys. This is where it gets even more trippy. You know, this Howard Lutnick guy speaking over here at the Bitcoin conference, guess what? His offices were in the Twin Towers, Cantor Fitzgerald. And guess what? He was the only one who didn't die from his company, because instead of being in the Twin Towers on 9/11, he had to go pick up to his little 5-year-old son, Kyle, who was just starting kindergarten. He had to take him there. He and his wife both wanted to take him to the first day at Horace Mann's school. Lutnick was in his son's classroom when he first heard the news of the attack that would forever change his life and his firm. His business occupied the 101st to 105th floors of One World Trade Center, just above the impact zone of the hijacked plane. I haven't even looked too deep in this, but my God, I'm sure there's something to this. And yes, that does make me suspicious of this dude, because if you've studied 9/11, you know that there are people who said they were warned ahead of time not to go to work that day. And it's just so coincidental. And of course, that could happen, right? You know, kids start kindergarten all the time, right? But maybe there's more to it. I don't know. It's just the shady shit keeps adding up. This guy's speaking at the Bitcoin conference. He's Epstein's ex-neighbor, raised millions for the Clinton. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to get you guys to see what I'm pointing at here, and hopefully it's getting through. He's helping Rumble go public. He happened to miss the Twin Towers and didn't go to work that day. And actually, if you scroll down to this article was written in 2011, so 10 years after 9/11. I'm pretty sure this is him. He looks a little older here at the Bitcoin conference, but look at this picture they use. Let me see if I can pop it open. This picture they use, let me scroll, is of him at the World Economic Forum. So that's a whole nother connection. Cantor Fitzgerald, CEO, Howard Lutnick, was supposed to be at the Twin Towers, but he didn't go to work that day. He spoke at the World Economic Forum. He's helped Rumble go public, connected to the Clintons, neighbor of Jeffrey Epstein, speaking at the Bitcoin conference, promising putting more money into that, connected to this whole big tech, bro. Is the picture getting through? Is the picture getting through? But that's not it. Let's continue on. Here's Peter Thiel, invested in Rumble. We talked a little bit about this. Says one of Vance and J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's VP candidate, and Thiel's earliest joint forays into politics may have been in 2021 when they invested in Rumble. And the investment went through Vance's Cincinnati-based private equity firm, which is what I told you. It's called Narya. And Vance's financial disclosure from 2022 valued his firm stake in Rumble at $15,000 to $50,000. So not a huge amount of money, but still, it's something that shows you that connection, these relationships. Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble, said this will be a major play against big tech, but at the same time, he's being funded by a different type of big tech. And then, of course, Peter Thiel backed J.D. Vance. And as I said, Peter Thiel also, he was invested in Rumble. So there's just these major Peter Thiel connections. And there's more, though. There's more. David Sachs joins Rumble's board after fellow PayPal Mafia alum Peter Thiel throws support behind video platform. So let's go back. Remember back here how we're talking about in June, Donald Trump raised $12 million plus at the home of David Sachs. And this same David Sachs, who was part of the same PayPal Mafia as Peter Thiel, he is now on the board of Rumble. Now, you could say, Derrick, you're just blowing this all out of proportion. These people, maybe they used to be left-leaning, and now they support Trump because they see how bad the left is, and they're all on board. So Elon Musk is supporting Trump. David Sachs is supporting Trump. Peter Thiel is supporting Trump. Obviously, J.D. Vance and all the people behind him. Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, I'm pretty sure they're on board with this as well. A lot of the big tech, the right-wing version of the big tech companies getting behind Donald Trump and his vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, at the same time that they're getting into the Bitcoin space and they're encouraging Trump to be a Bitcoin advocate. But it's not, again, Bitcoin as a true private currency that allows you to avoid government and not pay taxes and get off the big banks. No, it's a version of Bitcoin that is digital gold, just hold it, just its investment, just number go up. You'll get rich, I promise. Don't actually try to use it as a currency though. Just hold on to it forever. Don't worry about the values and the principles that it was based on. Let's just use it like it's internet funny money and we're going to get rich off it, right? But if you get rich at the cost of selling out the rest of the world while you're supporting these big tech bros that are also, look at Elon Musk and his vision of the world. It's very much similar to Klaus Schwab's fourth industrial revolution, transhumanism, brain chips, using AI to remake the world. Sure, they promise it's going to be the good version of the world, and they're selling you on that. But once again, if you understand the great inversion, you can see what's going on. You are being led astray. The Trump supporters are being led astray to think that this is just all happening organically. It is another version of the planning and the engineering. So that's why it doesn't matter who the predator class selects in the selection, whether it's Kamala Harris or somebody else or Donald Trump. At the end of the day, they will win because Eric Schmidt from Google is funding this side and Peter Thiel from PayPal and Palantir is funding this side, and they both are steering committee members of the Bilderberg group. Imagine that. Imagine that. Both sides are controlled. Who could have thunk it? All right, let's go to a couple more and we're going to take a break. So David Sachs, now in terms of the Rumble thing, like I said, we got this Cantor Fitzgerald CEO, Howard Lutnick, helped them go public. He was there on 9/11 and somehow didn't die. He spoke at the World Economic Forum. Peter Thiel, we know those connections. And then David Sachs from the PayPal Mafia on Rumble's board, who's also over here raising millions of dollars for Donald Trump and trying to push him towards, backing off the crypto game. That is what I've seen, and that is what I witnessed at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. Like I said, most of the people there have no idea that this original intention was about trying to get out of the big systems. And here's one more point. Elon, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Elon pointed this earlier today, tweeted this out today. Probably just a coincidence that the Alphabet/Google employees were the top donors to Biden. And so he's got a little graph here showing how top donors to former President Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2020. And you got Alphabet Inc. at the top. You got Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Apple Inc., etc. A lot of other companies there. And of course, on Trump's side, you got Wells Fargo, Bank of America, big banks still. So, the big banks are still behind Trump. And what I wrote here was that Elon likes to point out the general left-leaning bias of Google, etc. But will he speak up about how the right wing of big tech and crypto bros and PayPal mafia are funding Trump? Of course not, because they want you to fall for this fake awakening. They want you to think that the Elons are, he's speaking out against the woke mind virus. He's calling it out, man. He's really fighting for us, and we got the free speech platform on Twitter. Pay no attention to the fact that people are still being censored if they talk too harsh about Israel. Pay no attention to the fact that Elon, your boy, just met with Netanyahu when he visited the United States last week, and then since then he's been calling it anti-Semitic to speak out against Netanyahu, right? So if you trust these fools, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, David Sachs, JD Vance, Howard Lutnick, and if you blindly trust that Bitcoin is what it was supposed to represent, or if you don't even care because you're like, Derrick, I don't care, I'm getting rich, whatever, screw you and all your conspiracies, I'm getting rich, so that's all I care about. There's going to come a point where you will not be able to withdraw your Bitcoin without KYC. Know your customers, thumbprint, fingerprint, eye scan, or a face print. That is where this is going, because the industry, and yes, right now it's the Biden administration, but it's much more than that. The predator class does not want there to be free money. They don't want people to be able to use Monero privately. So that's why they're going after the exchanges that are letting you sell Monero. I talked about this a couple months ago. They shut down local Monero, where I was able to use it here in Mexico, and I could sell my Monero and get pesos if I needed. I could go to a local ATM, put in some code, no ID, no bank, no government, anything, and get money straight out and transact with anybody around the world. That is what they're afraid of, my friends. So if you've learned about Bitcoin or crypto and you think it's just number go up, let's all get rich, and it's just an investment, then you've got the wrong message. That's not what this ever was about. It was about freedom. It was about liberty. It was about trying to end the freaking blood-sucking, evil central banks, the Federal Reserve in the United States, the Bank of England, the Bank of International Settlements. They are ultimately the crux of this whole thing. Without their fake money system, they would not be able to create the tyranny that we see in the world today. It's instrumental to understanding how to make a better world, my friends, to understand the role that the central banks play. And in fact, let me just go ahead and pull this up real quick. If you have not seen my episode of The Pyramid of Power, focused on the banking system. I do think this is one of our best ones. I believe it is in season 3. For those of you who don't know, I released the Pyramid of Power in episodes of 4. We're on chapter 15, which will be coming out next month in August. So this is chapter 11, The Banking Cartel and the Future of Money. You can find it at thepyramidofpower.net. Absolutely need to watch this if you really want to understand how influential the banking cartel is. And that same banking cartel is co-opting and hijacking Bitcoin. And many of those people, you can look up companies like Blockstream. You can look up these various folks who are connected to the Bilderberg group, not even Peter Thiel, but other folks. They have co-opted the Bitcoin space. Yes, I can technically still use it, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful if I get some gains by holding it. But it is very far away from the original vision to be a non-state, non-government money. It is now you're getting all the big banks and all the the billionaires supporting it. And I know some people say, well, Derrick, that's good if the billionaires support it. Sure, but they don't have the same intentions as me, as the cypherpunks, as the agorists, as the freedom lovers who want a way to send money to our loved ones that doesn't have blood on it, right? Because if you're using the US dollar or the pound or the euro, you are using blood money. Because yes, without our consent, through coercion, through forced extortion known as involuntary taxation, they're sending money to drop bombs on Israel. They're funding what we're finding out is the rape of different people by Israeli soldiers. So if you continue to use that money, my friends, you are supporting that system. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm not here to victim blame, but we have alternatives. We've got gold, we've got silver, we've got Monero. I mean, like I said, I don't think Bitcoin is really that worth on getting into this late because it's so far away from what it used to be. You now have to show an ID to use most exchanges. But if we recognize that the true vision of this was always peer-to-peer, person to person, and they can't stop that. If I want to come buy bread from you, buy your veggies or buy your services from you, and you're willing to take silver, gold, barter, or Monero, or even Bitcoin, that's between me and you. The government should have no role in that. And that is where we create individual freedom, community freedom, as we exit from their failed, evil, corrupted financial systems and we build new ones. That is why my work focuses so much on that. We have to get out of their systems before the CBDCs come along, before they corral us into the technocratic state, as I talk about in my book. That is why we need to wake up to this. So if you're a Bitcoiner, hopefully some of this was insightful to you. If you're not involved, you might be saying, ha, 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 I told you guys the whole time this is corrupted. But no, that's not the case. For a moment, there was a chance that we could have used this space, particularly Bitcoin, to create more liberty. And there still is opportunity. I'm not saying it's all lost and hope is gone. I don't see much hope in the Bitcoin space, but in Monero, I do see hope. And if you think the whole thing was corrupted from the beginning, you just don't fundamentally understand. But yes, it has happened now. The rich billionaires and the right-wing tech bros connected to the predator class, the Bilderberg group and others, the same bankers behind most of the world's wars and all of our problems the last couple hundred years, have co-opted and are continuing to co-opt and misdirect people in the Bitcoin community away from the original vision. And that, my friends, is absolutely unfortunate. And it's sad to see. We'll be right back. Thank you guys for listening.
Are you using your phone, or is it using you? Rise above mass surveillance and discover a phone that protects your privacy and communications.
Above Phone does everything your old phone does, without tracking you, while giving you complete control over your phone and apps. We are better than big tech. It works with any cell service. No forced logins. No advertising or tracking. Download apps privately. Control your phone and its apps with secure hardware. Introducing Above Suite. Protects your internet traffic. Private email on any device. Video call with friends privately. Encrypted chat, calls, and internet phone. Protect your searches and get results. Don't worry if you're new. Every phone includes a free 45-minute live call. You also get free email and chat support, free guides and video courses. We can take back our technology. We're here to help with tools and education. You have the power.
Rise above with Above Phone.
AbovePhone.com.
All right, welcome back to the Conscious Resistance Live, episode 137, the Bitcoin Bros, Donald Trump, and Rumble. Hopefully that was informative to you guys. Let's go through some comments before we get into our final story of the night, and then I've got a beautiful woman and some dinner waiting for me, so I'm going to get out of here. But let's go through. Thank you, Erie Fairy, for supporting the Pyramid of Power. She says the Pyramid of Power is one of the best docu-series. Someone says NPCs love the elite. Of course, quoting the great George Carlin, it's a big club and we ain't in it. Somebody says, talk ain't fixing it, fixing Jack or voting. I agree. And this one, I love this from Tiggs. Tiggs, if you're looking for a leader, look in the mirror. Totally agree. And what else we got? Some Longevity Rituals says they're very rich with low emotional intelligence or poor with low IQ Trump supporters. I'm an independent. I think for myself. Good to hear. I'm glad that we're cultivating an audience of people who think for themselves and who don't blindly follow, including me. I don't want you to blindly follow me. I'm just here to present ideas and what I think are solutions, and hopefully you take them serious enough for you and your family, because that's what really matters. You know, we are in, what is this, the end of July? So we've got 5 months left in 2024, 6 years and 5 months till 2030. And that doesn't mean the powers that wish they were are going to complete all their vision in 2030, but we should absolutely be aware that they are working towards that. And as I've said time and time again, we need to be working just as hard thinking about what does our 2030 look like? What's your Liberty 2030, your Agora 2030, your Community 2030, and work towards that every single day. I mean, it's something that you can, even if you're overworked and you're tired, my friends, which I'm sure some of you are, and you're just ready to veg out at the end of the day. What if you listen to 1 hour-long podcast about permaculture every night, or even just a couple of nights a week as you got off work? Let's say 3 nights. You chose 3 nights that you're like, all right, I'm going to listen to this hour-long podcast and take notes on permaculture and growing food. By the end of the month, 4 weeks, you'd have listened to 12 hours of content about permaculture. Perhaps you'd have learned some new skills, you gained some new resources, and then when you choose to go beyond just listening, you actually apply it in your life. Well, then you're going to see real change, my friends. And guess what? We've got about 90 days, something to the election. If you start now, you start learning about alternative financial systems. You get off big tech by visiting takebackourtech.org or nomoregoogle.com or privacytools.io. And you get off those big tech systems. Like we just played the Above phone. That's one of my partners and sponsors. You can buy it through my link and support my work and get yourself a privacy phone. And if you start learning about permaculture, and maybe if you got kids, you start thinking about homeschooling or unschooling, or you come together with your local freedom community and maybe a couple other parents and you say, let's put our money together and hire a tutor for our kids so they don't have to be in that brainwashing system known as mainstream education, state-run education. Think about the impact you could have on your life by taking those concrete steps. Or you can just sit here and continue to watch the conspiratainment, infotainment, doom scrolling, because like I said earlier, most of the people who do this, for one, they're not even real journalists. They're just talking heads on the internet, and that's fine. I'm just saying. But they monetize your fear. They monetize your concern. They love it if they can give you a clickbait video. You'll never guess this. They're doing it again. This is the most intense moment ever. Or my favorite, emergency, red alert. I very rarely use those things unless I feel like it's super serious. But because those kinds of things are overplayed in this mainstream alternative media, because it's a clickbait, it's a engagement farming, it's outrage farming. The more pissed off, the more upset you are, and especially just making you mad. They don't necessarily have to give you a solution. They just say, hey, here's how fucked up the world is today, and I hope you guys feel better after that. Be sure to send me money. That is not what I try to do. That is not what the Conscious Resistance does. I'm trying to give you guys ideas for practical solutions, because if we just wait around and do nothing, we choose apathy or we choose voting, we know what's coming. We can see the future, my friends. And I'll repeat myself as I've been sharing recently, but if we don't take concrete steps, we're selling out our ancestors who worked so hard to get us here, and we're selling out the coming generations who are depending on us to build a better world. And I don't want that. I don't want anybody to be in a position like you might have been during COVID 1984, where you had to get the jab or stick something up your nose because you're like, well, damn it, I don't have any other way to make money for my family. And I've heard Derrick and other people talking about that something like this was going to come along, but I didn't do anything about it. I just clicked, watch TV, watch the social media, and never actually changed anything in my life. And well, here it is. And since I'm not prepared, I have to make a decision that goes against my values, my principles, and may even kill me in the case of the jab, right? I don't want people to have to make those decisions when the climate lockdowns come along, or the digital IDs for any other purpose, or the immunity passwords come back again, or whatever it is. If you see what's coming, act. Take some fucking action. Get activated. Being awake's not enough. All right, we got one more story to cover. We're going to get into our book and then a song, and I'm out of here because, as I said, I got a beautiful woman and some food waiting on me, and she won't wait all night. So Obama instigated an anti-Biden coup with 25th Amendment threat, according to Seymour Hersh. And Seymour Hersh is an amazing journalist. He's one of my favorite journalists. Let me grab this real quick. He wrote this book, which is one of my favorites. It's a big one. It's called Reporter, and he is a classic old school journalist who's still around, but because he speaks so much truth, the Western media really doesn't let him report anymore, and he's just gone totally independent. And he was right about the what was it, the pipeline in Germany, I think, that they claimed was done by Russia or whoever else, and he said that it was an inside job. Well, he's pretty right on that. Investigative journalist Seymour Hersh writes on his Substack an article outlining how his sources in Washington, D.C. and the White House have confirmed to him that former President Obama was the impetus to push Joe Biden out of the 2024 presidential race. Now, you guys know me. Normally, I don't give a shit about talking about mainstream stories related to the election and things like that. But I just wanted to point this one out because it does show some element of truth. Many people have suspected that Obama is still essentially in power via Joe Biden. And it's not that Obama's in power. He's a puppet as well. But the faction that he represents, right? And they just decided, like, Joe, you're no longer serving a purpose. We're going to get rid of you. Now, Seymour Hersh isn't a conspiracy theorist, so he's not getting into, that aspect of it, saying like somebody behind Obama. He's taking it at face value based on his sources that Obama was involved in it. And Obama may have been, but he's not acting under his own volition. He's acting for this same banking cabal, the predator class. Seymour Hersh says President Obama was deeply involved in the alleged coup and called Joe Biden after his, quote, incident in Vegas, which from all outward appearances looks like a major slip and fall with a significant hit to the head. I went over reports this week with a senior official in Washington who helped me fashion an account of a White House in complete disarray. That's what Seymour Hersh said. He said, quote, Obama called Biden after breakfast on July 20th, so 9 days ago, and said, here's the deal. We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment, a senior Washington official told Hersh. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries were reportedly directly involved. Obama's plan was not to immediately endorse Kamala, but it was clear that she would, quote, get the nod. Obama has an agenda, and he wanted to seek it through to the end, and he wanted to have control over who would be elected. Like, he still sees this as like, this is the fourth term of his administration, essentially through Joe Biden, or even Kamala Harris, who is all but a puppet. And the bigger understanding is the final quote from this article. It says, Team Obama had an agenda and he wanted to seek it through the end, and he wanted to have control over who got elected. This is the part where people forget the risk to Team Obama that has never gone away. So the article is there. I encourage you to read it and learn more about it. I just wanted to kind of share about that it does appear that there's some truth to the fact that, in terms of the mainstream storyline, and again, you guys know I'm not one to just believe these storylines as absolute fact. For me, for my money, this is all just scripted narrative, and there may be some element of truth here. For one, Seymour Hersh is an old school journalist. I do trust him, but sources can lead you wrong too. Sources can feed you information, a story that they want to get out for some other purpose we might not currently be aware of. And at the same time, it does make sense that there would be efforts to get Biden out of the way so they could try to prop up somebody else. And all of it, I think, is just designed to keep you focused. What's happening this week on the election? What's happening this week on this season in America? Will Biden run? Will he? Won't he? Is Trump going to do that? It's all about just keeping our attention trained to this. And, it's so unusual, I think, for people who are outside of the United States or North America, because, for example, in Mexico, where I live, the majority of the year, the election season is very short. I've heard it's very short in Europe as well, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, something like that. Where the U.S., they start talking about the election 2 years ahead of time, and it just gets more and more increased. And we're kind of at the point now where it's at its peak, you could say. It's at one of the worst times where you're just constantly freaking hearing about the election season. And I don't think that's normal, but I do think it's all designed to keep us focused and entrained on how much attention we can give this. So I don't want you to obsess over the election, but I did think that that particular story was worth talking about because, well, it shows you that even if you trust the mainstream elections, even if you believe your vote actually matters, and let's say you're a Democrat and you're like, hey, but I was ready to vote for Biden. Well, some other people came in and just took him out of the way. They didn't use a typical process. They apparently put pressure on him and threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment so that he would step aside. And it looks like they got their way. And the sad thing about this is Joe Biden, he's a criminal in different ways. He's a puppet, but he's still a human being. I know that's hard for some people to accept, even Donald Trump, even Henry Kissinger, George Bush, people who I despise, they are human beings. And in the case of Joe Biden, he's clearly being used. Like as a literal puppet, keep walking to finish this election. You got to stay in power so that we, whoever we is behind him, can maintain our power and the illusion of power. And it's all fucking nonsense. All right, guys, let's do the segment. What's Derrick reading? And I already showed one of my books this week, Reporter, a novel by Seymour Hersh. Highly recommend. It's a thick one, but I remember when I first got this, I just couldn't stop reading because I'm a journalism nerd and I really like it. But the book I wanted to highlight tonight is called American Indian Activism. See if you guys can check that one out. The full title is Alcatraz to the Longest Walk. And now, for those who don't know, I am native to Texas and native to the United States. I didn't grow up on a reservation. I didn't start learning about my ancestry until my early 20s, started participating in Sundance and other important ceremonies and rituals, and got to go report on Standing Rock and connect to the Lakota and some other tribes. And it's an important aspect of my life, even when I don't necessarily get to Sundance or participate in this. And because of that, as well as the fact that I'm a history nerd, this book is very dear to me. Again, it's called American Indian Activism, Alcatraz to the Longest Walk. I'll just read the back for you. It says, the American Indian occupation of Alcatraz Island was the catalyst for a more generalized movement in which Native Americans from across the country have sought redress of grievances as they continue their struggle for survival and sovereignty. In this volume, some of the dominant scholars in the field joined to chronicle and analyze Native American activism in the 1960s and 70s. The book also provides extended background and historical analysis of the Alcatraz takeover and discusses its place in contemporary Indian activism. And for those who don't know about Alcatraz Island, the former prison off the coast of California, and the natives in the 60s took it over because to try to, the young activists, what was called, at least part of it, the American Indian movement, as well as other groups, were standing up for the first time. Like a lot of people in the 60s, young people across the board, blacks, women, young, just white Americans and natives were starting to stand up. And for us at this time, and I say us being native people generally, we weren't allowed to grow our hair long. You might not realize this, but there were still laws in the United States just in the last 100 years preventing people from speaking their languages. This goes back to the history of the boarding schools being taken out of our homes, being placed on reservations, having our names changed, having our hair cut, and things like that. That is part of the reason why I grow my hair long, because I love it, but also it's a tribute to my ancestors. And so you had Russell Means, you had Leonard Peltier, who is still rotting away in prison, free Leonard Peltier. You had John Trudell, who was a huge influence on me and my work, and I quote him in my books, and I've quoted him in my talks, and you can find more about that. And yeah, it's just a really important piece of my life. And last week we were talking about the other book called A Generation Divided, which was more focused on like the American, the new right and the new left of the 60s. Well, this is just another movement that was taking place at the same time that a lot of people don't know this history. So American Indian activism, Alcatraz to the Longest Walk. And the other thing is let me see if I can pull it up real quick. The natives, whether you like it or not, were some of the last people to have literally a firefight with the U.S. government. There was Little Bighorn. There was numerous different incidents that this book chronicles where activists were standing up and pushing back against the government and the treatment of the native people, because just like other areas, the reservations have been infiltrated, and when the U.S. government wants to use them or turn them against each other, they would, and that's what they did. And so a lot of activists died and suffered under different ways. I'm trying to find a picture here. I can't find it, but I'll show you this article. John Trudell, again, was a huge inspiration, and he died in 2015. I was supposed to interview him like 2 weeks before he passed away, and I was really disappointed, obviously, but he passed on and he continues on to inspiring people. If you don't know him, check out John Trudell. This is the New York Times article. John Trudell, outspoken advocate for American Indians, is dead in 1969. There's a young John Trudell in 1971. In 1969, he joined an occupation of Alcatraz Island that lasted 19 months. Think about that. The natives occupied Alcatraz Island for 19 months, a year and a half, trying to get the U.S. government to meet their demands to improve life on the reservations, to actually give the natives representation within the government, which of course is not a perfect system. And I'm not for the government. And that's also why I like John Trudell, because you go back, find this talk, my friends, search John Trudell, Take Back the Earth. If you watch that tonight, here's your homework for the night. If you watch that, you are either going to be brought to tears, you're going to feel inspired, motivated. That, at least that's how I felt. And I feel that way every time I listen to it. It's so inspiring. And John Trudell was saying back then that he was telling the natives, like, don't fall for the trick to think that using the oppressor's game and voting and playing politics is actually going to bring us freedom, going to bring us liberty. We know that they're liars. We know that they steal and they cheat, and they'll do whatever it takes. We can't believe and play that they're going to actually give us decency and dignity and sovereignty by playing their game. That is never going to happen, my friends. Unfortunately, it is not going to come through government. And so John Trudell, one of these native activists that's written about in this book, is a huge inspiration of mine. So that's where we're going to leave it tonight, guys. I appreciate you so much for tuning in with me. We're back to doing the show every Monday on a regular basis. If you support what I do here, my investigative journalism, I want to invite you to visit theconsciousresistance.com/invest. This is the best place to find my work. You can sign up to support me on a monthly basis on Buy Me a Coffee, on Substack. You can send love mail or hate mail to our P.O. box. You can support me via Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, or Monero. Things like that. And if not, just please share my work, get the message out. Last week, you guys did a great job of sharing my report on the Summit of the Future. That one's doing really good. I've got some new big interviews coming up, and I hope you guys will continue to support me and continue to spread the word about these important topics, because I'm not talking about the fluff and all the garbage out there. I'm trying to keep bringing you guys the topics that actually matter, helping wake up people to the Bitcoin co-opting, to the Rumble, shady connections. I don't know what it means exactly at the moment, but that's why I'm not on Rumble. I don't want any money from Rumble. I don't take any money from YouTube, from Google, and I definitely don't want any money from Peter Thiel. I'm only funded by you and The Last American Vagabond, where I get paid to write articles. But if you want to support me, please continue to do so. Share the work. And we're going to end with our song as we always do. This is our Conscious Music Artist of the Week. This is a song from one of my favorite artists, Dub FX, who's originally Australian. He tours around Europe. He plays in the streets. He plays in the clubs. He now lives in Portugal, and he's going to be performing in the UK at the People's Reset UK, September 28th, as part of our event. And I'm so excited because I'm going to get to perform right before him. I'm getting to perform next to him, and he's been a big inspiration to me. This next video that we're going to play from him as we say goodnight is called Fake Paradise. Check out the music, check out the words. Have a good week, my friends. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free, my friends. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Peace.
Let's make this easy. Where are the glasses? Where are the glasses?
So let's get all the what we got here. Everybody gather round cause I got an idea. And maybe bold and nobody's clear. The zombie nation is approaching here. Hey, I'm walking through got to be real and got to be true. So I open up my soul and give it to you with a little bit of vibe that I make for you. It's fine the way that we do. We got a baseline that will make you move. Come on, it's time that you join our crew. Hey, I will always hear what you say. I will never stand in your way. I can always tell if you're wise. I can see your soul with my third eye, right? I don't need to hear what they say. I'm not in those games that they play. I can always see through the lies. I can see the world through my third eye, right? Sometimes I'm feeling so tempted to let myself be misdirected by all the lies of what them say. I just listen to my soul. I listen to my soul. I'm walking through this fake paradise, a fake paradise, yeah. Walking through this fake paradise, a fake paradise. Walking through this fake paradise, a fake paradise, yeah. Walking through this fake paradise, a fake paradise. I will always hear what you say. I will never stand in your way. I can always tell if you're wise. I can see your soul with my third eye, right?
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.